Hello, this is Chicky, aka Michelle, on the Catholic Family Podcast. And before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you for anyone who commented or liked the last few. And also, I don't know for sure if I will reply because I can definitely be a comment counter. And it's really easy for me to kind of get obsessed over comments and likes. And yeah, I don't do a ton of social media, but when I do, it's a really dangerous slope to go down because, I don't know. I'm sure some of you know how it is. You post something and then you're waiting for likes and comments, and then you see someone commented and you have to reply, and then you wait for their reply, and it just turns into this vacuum of wasted time. And I kind of have an obsessive personality also, so I'm going to try really hard to not get obsessed with watching comments, even though I think they're all great. And yeah, obviously the Catholic Family Podcast isn't Facebook, so that's good. But yeah, I think just knowing my limitations of trying not to become obsessed. So that being said, I wanted to talk today about prioritizing your marriage. So back when we were dating, we took marriage classes, and we had Father Dominic Radecki at the time because we were living in California, and he gave very, very good, thorough marriage classes. And the major thing that stuck out to me, the one thing that I have remembered all these 8 years, well, almost 8 years, is the thing that he said about prioritizing your marriage. So he said that in a marriage, you need to put God first, put your husband second, and put your children third, and then yourself comes after that. But it is very hard to do because I feel like if you're Catholic, and sometimes even if you're not, you get married, you have kids, you start living your life, and you just forget about dating. You forget to go on dates. You don't prioritize it. You get stuck in your day-to-day routine, and that's that. You think you're fulfilling your vocation, and I'm not saying you're not. I mean, one of the main purposes of marriage is to procreate and have children. And obviously we want to do our duty as Catholics. But one of the purposes of marriage is also to love and support your spouse. And I think sometimes we might forget that. We are in this together, and if we aren't prioritizing our marriage, then it's likely to get stagnant, and it could fall apart. I mean, I'm not saying that it always does, but it happens. So it's so important to not put your kids before your husband. And that sounds great, but what does that actually mean? So I think something that happens with us a lot is when Ben gets off work, he comes home and I don't even acknowledge his presence. And that sounds terrible. And I know that when we were first married, and even when we first had, our oldest daughter, our second daughter, I went out of my way to greet him when he walked in the door. I always stopped what I was doing. I went, gave him a kiss, said, "Hi, how's your day?" And I made a point to do that. And it made him feel welcomed, and it made him feel like it was worth it. Everything he was doing, all the hard work that he put in during the day paid off, and it was good. He was happy to be back home. But it's hard to prioritize that, like half the time when he comes home, I have filthy clothes that have been smashed in banana and snot and spit and whatever else. And one of my children is crying, and one of them needs their diaper changed, and I have to make dinner. And the last thing on my mind is going and saying hello to my husband. And I know that this is an issue I have, but I think it really matters. It matters that when your husband walks in the door, he is welcomed and he feels like he wants to be home. And I'm not saying that you have to put on makeup and change your clothes and fix your hair and have dinner for him ready on the table, because let's be honest, that's not always reality. I mean, sure, that would be great in a perfect world, or in a world where we had servants. Like, I would love to provide that for my husband. But in all reality, in the world we live in right now, that's not always possible. So on a great day, I will do that. I will make sure I look nice, and I will have dinner ready, and the house will be clean. That's on a good day. That does not have to happen every day. You're not a failure if your house isn't perfectly clean and dinner's not on the table when your husband walks through the door. But he should be greeted with a smile, no matter how hard it is, no matter what you're feeling or how bad of a day you've had. He should at least be acknowledged. His presence should be acknowledged. And I think on the flip side, if I were working, if I had to work and I came home and no one even said hi to me, like, I would be pretty upset. And I don't know if it even matters as much to men, maybe, but I think it does. I think deep down it affects them. So that's one of the ways that we can put our husbands before our children. Another way I think you can prioritize your marriage is by making sure you go out on dates. And this is another hard one, because it's not always easy to find a babysitter and to carve out the time to go on a date. And, sometimes you're tight on money, and sometimes you honestly just don't have the energy even. But I think it is very important. And wives, if you have to plan the dates, that's okay. Let it go. I feel like it's really hard to accept sometimes, because, back when you're dating or first married and you think about, oh, my husband planned all these wonderful dates for me, and he would surprise me and come pick me up, and we'd go out and it'd be the best time. And okay, that was before. Now it's okay if you have to plan where you go and what you do, as long as he's willing to just do it with you. That's okay. You're prioritizing your marriage, and I think it's honestly more the woman's job to do that anyways, because I think sometimes it's just literally not on the man's radar. So give him some hints, plan out where you're going to go, maybe who's going to babysit, and make it happen regularly. Schedule it in, because if you don't schedule it, it won't happen. And for us, we try really hard to do, every week we have an in date, so that's usually just, popcorn and cheese and watching a movie, and that's when we spend time together, and that's our at-home date. And then the next week we will try and go out on a date. So get a babysitter and go to dinner or, disc golf or whatever. And most of the time we don't even spend very much money, because sometimes we'll even eat before we leave. And it's not super hard to go on a date without spending a bunch of money. So that's what we try to do. That's a perfect world. It definitely doesn't always happen, but I know for a fact that I am a lot happier when it does, because honestly, sometimes you just need to reconnect with your husband. I have been guilty of going days, if not weeks, without really talking to my husband, and that's bad. I am very guilty of it. You'll just get stuck in your day-to-day routine, and you'll maybe talk about the kids once in a while or what's going on next week, but really talking, really getting to know what the other one's thinking and what their views are on things and how they're feeling, that's the conversations you need to be having. And if you are not going on dates, and if you're not carving out the time in your week, it's likely it will not happen. It's hard when you have kids. I don't know how many times we've started conversations around the dinner table and gotten interrupted, and you have to fix another plate or clean up a mess someone spilled, or your kids are talking over you, and that happens. But if you're really taking the time to date your husband, then everyone will reap the rewards. And it's a funny thing, because it's really not only good for your husband and you when you prioritize your marriage, it's actually the best thing you can possibly do for your kids, because they want to see a healthy relationship, and you want to give that to them. When they grow up, you want them to know what a happy, healthy marriage should look like, and what spouse they are trying to look for, what qualities they want to find in a spouse. They should see that from you and from your husband, their dad. They should look at their dad and say, I want to find a spouse who loves me like my dad loves my mom, and who talks to me like my dad talks to my mom, and who looks at me like my dad looks to my mom. And if you aren't prioritizing your marriage, they will not see that. If you're prioritizing them over your husband, all they will see is just gratefulness and selfishness, honestly, because when your kids think that the world revolves around them, that's bad. And when you act like the world revolves around them, that's bad. They need to know their place, and their place comes after your marriage. And it's also very important to show that God comes first. Make sure that you are telling your kids that they need to pray their prayers, and that you are praying for your husband, and you are praying for your kids, and that your husband is praying for you. It all works together. So if you really prioritize God first, your husband second, and your kids third, you're gonna have a happier, healthier marriage and a happier life. And even for your kids, even though it might hurt at first, it might be like tearing a Band-Aid off a wound for them to realize that they're not the center of the universe. But it's good. It's good for them, and it's going to be good for you too. Okay, well, I think that was my thought for this evening, and hope everyone has a great week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.